The clinking of champagne flutes and the murmur of polite conversation were the soundtrack to Mark's slow-motion collapse. He stood, a statue of a man, by the edge of the glittering ballroom, a smile frozen on his face as he watched his wife, Sarah, across the room. Her head was thrown back in laughter, a genuine, unrestrained sound that he hadn't heard in years. It was directed at her boss, Richard Thorne, a man whose expensive suit and easy charm Mark had always envied but now saw as a shroud. Richard's hand rested casually on the small of Sarah's back, a possessive gesture that made something cold and hard crystallize in Mark's chest. Just then, Richard leaned in, his lips brushing Sarah's ear. She didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, her smile shifting into a look of intimate complicity. In that instant, Mark didn't need words. The knowledge hit him like a physical blow, a silent scream that ripped through the festive air, heard only by him. The world, the love, the life he had built, all of it shattered into a million sharp, glittering pieces on the polished marble floor. The first weeks were a haze of static and white noise. Mark moved through his days like a ghost in his own home. The house, once filled with the scent of Sarah's perfume and the gentle hum of their shared life, became a mausoleum of memories. Each photo on the mantelpiece, each coffee mug in the cupboard, was a fresh spike in his gut, a reminder of the lie he had lived. He tried to confront her, but her casual indifference was a second, more profound betrayal. "It's just work, Mark," she had said, the words dripping with a condescending pity that made his blood run cold. She didn't deny it, didn't even try to hide the contempt. That was the moment the grief calcified into something else entirely, a cold, unblinking hatred. The pain was no longer a wound to be healed but a furnace to forge a weapon. Mark, a systems analyst, had a mind that thrived on patterns and logic. He began to apply that same meticulous precision to dismantling their lives. He started small, a phantom in the digital ether. He used his technical expertise to infiltrate Thorne's company network, not to steal money, but to observe. He found a treasure trove of evidence, emails, encrypted chats, and illicit transactions that painted a picture of a much larger conspiracy. Richard Thorne wasn't just a cheating boss. He was a shark, using his position to funnel company money through shell corporations, with Sarah's help. She wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was a willing accomplice, seduced by the promise of wealth and status. The deeper Mark dug, the more the narrative of a wronged husband shifted. This wasn't about a simple affair anymore. It was about greed, betrayal on a cosmic scale, and a deep-seated rot at the heart of the people he had once loved. He spent his nights hunched over his computer, the glow of the screen illuminating the hardening lines of his face. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. He subsisted on coffee and a singular purpose: to make them pay, not with pain, but with consequences. His obsession was a poison, seeping into every corner of his life. His friends called, their voices thick with concern, but he brushed them off. His sister, Elena, a constant presence in his life, was the first to see the change. During a strained lunch, she reached across the table, her hand resting on his. "Mark, you're not you anymore," she pleaded, her eyes filled with a sad understanding. "This is eating you alive." He pulled his hand away, the touch feeling like an accusation. "The old me is dead, Elena," he said, his voice flat and devoid of warmth. "And this is the new me. Get used to it." He saw the hurt in her eyes, the slow withdrawal of her hand, and felt a brief, hollow pang of regret. But it was fleeting. The image of Sarah's complicit smile and Richard's arrogant smirk quickly pushed it away, replacing it with the cold, driving rage that had become his only companion. The world around him faded to black and white, and the only color was the brilliant, burning red of his revenge. He was an architect of ruin, and he was just beginning to lay the foundations. Mark's plan moved into its public phase with the precise, deliberate pace of a ticking clock. He knew the legal system could be bought and manipulated, so he decided to bypass it entirely. At first, he began by anonymously feeding carefully selected information to a few key financial reporters he had targeted. He presented them with just enough detail to spark their interest, pointing them toward Thorne's financial malfeasance without giving away his hand. He meticulously crafted a digital trail that made it appear as if a disillusioned insider was leaking the information. The first domino fell with a satisfying crash. A small article appeared in an online business journal, questioning some of Thorne's acquisitions. Then another, more detailed one, hit a major financial news outlet. The whispers began, and in the corporate world, whispers were a death knell. Thorne, arrogant and overconfident, initially dismissed them, but the pressure mounted. Mark watched it all, a silent puppet master pulling strings from the shadows. He saved the most damning evidence for last, focusing not just on Richard, but on Sarah. Using her login credentials, which he had silently collected for months, he fabricated a final, catastrophic transaction. He moved millions from a company account to an offshore shell corporation they both controlled, but he made sure the trail led directly to her. He then sent an anonymous email to a top-tier investigative journalist, detailing the transaction and providing the proof. He knew this would destroy Richard, but it would also guarantee Sarah's downfall. She had chosen to play in the deep end of a dark pool, and she would drown with her partner in crime. The media storm was biblical. A special report aired on national television, complete with graphics tracing the illegal money trail and photos of Sarah and Richard together. The arrests happened in the full glare of the public eye. Mark, sitting alone in his desolate house, watched the news unfold. He saw Richard, his face pale and slack with shock, being led away in handcuffs. Then, the camera focused on Sarah. Her defiant expression had crumbled into a mask of pure terror as officers took her into custody. He saw her scan the crowd, her eyes wide with panic, and for a fleeting second, he imagined she was looking for him, the man she had betrayed. A cold, exhilarating rush ran through him. The court proceedings were a blur of legal jargon and public humiliation. Mark attended, hidden in the back of the courtroom, a ghost watching the destruction he had wrought. He listened as the charges were read, the full extent of their greed and deceit laid bare for all to see. The convictions were swift and decisive. Richard was given a long prison sentence for corporate fraud and embezzlement. Sarah, implicated as his willing accomplice, received a shorter but equally devastating term. The judge's final words, condemning their arrogance and greed, were music to Mark's ears. The day they were sentenced, Mark sat in his car outside the courthouse. He watched the prison transport bus, its windows tinted, pull away. They were gone. He had won. The revenge was complete. But as he drove back to the empty house, the triumph was strangely hollow. He had become a hollowed-out version of the man he once was, his heart a barren wasteland where love had once bloomed. The rage was gone, replaced by a profound, chilling silence. He had traded everything he was for a victory that felt as empty as the house he now inhabited. The prison bars that held them captive were solid, but the cage of his own making was invisible and far more confining. He was free, but he was trapped, left to live in the permanent chill of his sweet justice. Moral of the story: the sweetest revenge is a bitter victory that imprisons the avenger in a cage of their own making.